RWBY is the first franchise I've represented on gaming custom cards that didn't start out as a video game. To the uninformed, its legacy began as a computer-animated web series from the mind of the late Monty Oum. Even after his tragic passing, Rooster Teeth did their best to keep his legacy alive, to varying degrees of success. Over the course of a decade, this once low-budget indie web series transformed into a multimedia franchise with its own books, presentations, and, yes, even video games. At the time of this video, Rooster Teeth had closed its doors, so the future of RWBY is uncertain. Even so, it's easy to see how RWBY gained such a massive fanbase. It has unique characters with cool weapons and powers, is packed with over-the-top choreographed fights, and has birthed more plot holes than a piece of Swiss cheese. Naturally, these elements have been faithfully recreated in card form as a swarming deck, though some liberties had to be taken. Each of the 4 Huntresses has a different attribute and their own dedicated Semblance spell and trap, and while they're mostly warriors of varying levels and effects, they're also treated as another type while on the field or graveyard. With such a large combination of types, attributes, and levels at your disposal, and no archetypal restrictions or summoning clauses to hold you back, a RWBY deck can be as over-the-top as your imagination allows, but can also be an incoherent jumbled mess if you don't know what you're doing. All in all, a RWBY deck's main strength comes from its unpredictability and tends to reward outside-of-the-box thinking more than other archetypes. RWBY is the mandatory 3-of combo starter that techs out any other Huntress you want, tour guide style, but also upon special summon and with the cost of a discard. In return, that Huntress doesn't have its effect negated. She's also a plant on the field or graveyard. Her only real weakness is that her effect misses its timing if her summon isn't the last thing to happen in a chain. Again, similar to Tour Guide. Weiss is the RWBY archetype's +1 and its only tuner. She opens up your synchro and spellcast related plays and can search out any semblance you want upon summon. Like RWBY, Weiss's effect can also miss its timing, but teching her out with RWBY will let you use it just fine. Blake is the Black Huntress, so she fittingly opens up your Ixies plays. Unlike your fellow Huntresses, she's a beast warrior that can also be an illusion monster. Unusually among illusion monsters, she doesn't have that cannot destroy or be destroyed in battle effect, nor does she have any connection to the Eye of Widget. Really, that secondary type is just a reference to her semblance in canon. Her real purpose is to boost both her and one other Huntress's level for a high rank Ixies monster. Last but not least, Yang has the highest level and attack among the Huntresses as a respectable level 4 1900 beat stick. I'm sorry, she reads like a mini novel, so I'll just sum her up. First, she's also a dragon on the field or graveyard. Second, any Ixies monster that uses both her and Blake has its attack doubled and its effects negated. Third, any non-effect fusion, synchro, or link monster that uses her as material can gain a slew of effects based on how many Huntresses you use. I realize that it's normal monsters that have yellow templates, but making her normal monster support would render her impractical compared to the other Huntresses, so I settled with non-effect monsters of any extra deck type. Now, I have technically designed an extra deck monster in this deck, but it's not part of the archetype itself, nor is it directly relevant to RWBY at all. Instead, it's more like fan service, the kind of card you might see in a RWBY Yu-Gi-Oh crossover fanfiction or something. This monster is Silver Eyes RWBY Dragon. As RWBY and Yang are both warriors that are also a plant and dragon respectively, using them both as fusion materials lets Silver Eyes purge the darkness completely. All jokes aside, this can also be used as a potential super poly target for or against certain decks like Bestial or Rika. Even without Huntresses, Silver Eyes is still a lighter intervention with a 3k body, which might be useful against sub-terrors or other decks that flip monsters face down. Now for the spells and traps, and most of them are the Semblances. Again, some liberties were taken for the sake of adapting them to card form, so they function a bit differently from the show. The first one, Petal Burst, is the deck's fusion enabler, but it summons so much more than Silver Eyes. This can summon any fusion monster that mentions a material by name, so long as the other Huntress is an acceptable material. Effective choices include Millennium Eyes Restrict, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, the Dark Magicians, and Chimera the Illusion Beast, but there are many other possible options. Imagination is the limit. Weiss's Semblance, Glyphs, is essentially a combo extender and extra deck enabler. The first effect lets you summon another Huntress from your hand by milling their Semblance. The second effect is potentially more potent as it can get out any synchro monster you want so long as you have the right discards in your hand. Since there's no summoning clause, there's nothing stopping you from just tuning Weiss with your synchro monster to put out a bigger one. Blake's Semblance, Shadow, is basically a mini metal reflect slime that can draw an attack or targeting effect toward itself. It's also a Huntress monster when summoned, so its level can be modified with Blake's effect. More importantly, it's a beast that can be treated as any attribute you want, which can open up other extra deck plays that weren't possible with the other Huntresses. Yang's Semblance, Burn, was modified into an archetype-based destruction jammer. This had to be done since monsters don't have HP in this game, while offering the deck some form of protection. Since it can also be activated if Yang is used as material, there is not as much pressure to save her until after this card is used. The only difference is that you only inflict burn damage if Yang herself is on the board. The final card isn't a Semblance at all, but the deck's own Pot of Avarice clone. It can recycle your Huntresses and Semblances to draw up to 2 cards, while also rewarding your creativity if you're able to recycle all 4 different Huntresses and their Semblances with 1 more card. It's not searchable, however, so hybrid decks that focus on specific Huntresses won't get much mileage out of this. That's all the cards! Now for this video's combo, and this is just one of many you could make. You'll need Blake in either RWBY or Weiss, but in the case of RWBY, you're just using her to fetch Weiss from the deck. First, summon Weiss, one way or the other, and use your effect to search out Glyphs. Activate it, then mill the Shadow Semblance to summon Blake from your hand. Next, use Blake's effect to increase her own and Weiss's levels to 5. From here, numerous level 10 Synchro and rank 5 Ixie monsters are available. But there's also one more option, Ultimea Zulkin. If you have a spell or trap to set, this combo can give you access to many Synchro Dragons to choose from, but for turn 1, you would typically pick one that has an negation effect on it. My sample deck is a RWBY Punk hybrid, but this is just one of many possible RWBY decks that can work. RWBY and Weiss are the only 3-ofs among the RWBY archetypes since they start your combos. Blank and Yang are at 2 since you're usually better off fetching them with RWBY. For the Punk engine, Xiamin and Foxy Toon are 3-ofs while Deer Note and Ogre Dance are at 1. I realize that 4 out of 8 Punk cards being level 8 monsters is atypical, but this is to make good use of the Glyph Semblance, which can cheat out a level 8 Synchro by discarding an extra level 8, thus allowing you to tune with Weiss for a level 10 Synchro. And of course, 3 Ash Blossoms are the norm. For the spell and trap lineup, there's 2 of each RWBY spell and 1 of each trap. You have to run at least 1 of each for Test Your Limits Draw 3 effect to be live. 3E teleports in case you don't open with RWBY, and the remaining cards should speak for itself. For the extra deck, I've included a few fusions to be made with Petal Burst, including Silver Eyes Ruby Dragon. I realize that it's competing with Red Eyes Dark Dragoon as they use the same materials, so I should point out that Silver Eyes is more like a hard counter to certain dark decks like Shadol or Yubel. In most cases, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is the better choice, especially in a turn 1 play. There's also Gaia Prominence, which can be made with RWBY and any other Huntress. Not only can it stop most hand traps that hinder your plays, but it can also bring Yang or Ash Blossom back when it destroys something in battle. The Synchros have the most focus, as this deck includes the Ultimea Zulkin combo I featured. There are several level 8 dragons to summon for free with Zulkin's effect, Bisthial Disbatter for the level 10 Glyph combo, and Psychic End Punisher for the Punk engine. There are a few Ixies monsters as well, though only a couple of them can be made with Blake's effect. Evolzar Lars is an Omni-Negate that can be made with RWBY and Blake, while Odd Eye's Rebellion Dragon Overlord can be made with Blake and Yang. Keep in mind that Overlord's effects will be negated while it's on the board, so it'll just be a 6k beat stick. Until it's destroyed in the Monster Zone. If that happens, you get to put it in your Pendulum Zone, then use its Pendulum effect to revive it, then overlay Ixie's Rising Rebellion Falcon, a 4k with Blanket Immunity that nukes your opponent's board. And of course, there's Typhon to answer to strong turn 1 extra deck boards. Lastly, there are 2 Link monsters. SP Level Knight is self-explanatory, but Gaia Saber is a non-effect Link monster that can inherit all 3 of Yang's effects if she and 2 other Huntresses are used as materials. To clarify, Gaia Saber will be a double attacking 2600 that's immune to activated monster effects during the main phase and doesn't let your opponent do anything during the battle phase. Since both attacks are allowed to be direct, this can potentially let you finish off your opponent when Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos, could not. The side deck is mostly devoted to 3 Super Polys, a bunch of targets depending on what deck you're up against. And there's also Harpy's Feather Duster and 2 Lightning Storms to make up for the lack of back row hate in the main deck. And that's everything. If I haven't already announced it, then I should state that I recently got a new job. This channel is still alive, I just won't upload videos as much as I used to. Anyway, I hope you enjoy playing or making your own RWBY deck and customs. As always, feel free to let me know of your thoughts or feedback in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're interested in more gaming custom cards.